Gideon moved quietly through the empty corridors of the old space station. The hum of machinery and the occasional clang of loose panels were the only sounds. He had worked here for years, sweeping floors, fixing lights, and keeping the station running while everyone else focused on bigger jobs. No one noticed him much. He liked it that way. Life was simple, predictable, and safe. It was late, and most of the station's crew had gone to their quarters. Gideon pushed his mop down the dimly lit hallway, thinking about the small cup of synthetic soup he would have for dinner. The soft whir of the lights above was suddenly interrupted by a faint, high-pitched whimper. Gideon froze. He frowned and listened. The sound came again, soft but urgent, echoing through the pipes and vents. Most people would have ignored it or assumed it was some broken machinery. But something about it felt alive. He followed the sound to a maintenance bay, a place few visited. There, huddled in the corner under a stack of crates, was a tiny creature no bigger than a large cat. Its scales shimmered faintly in the dim light, a mix of deep red and gold. Its wings were folded tightly, and its large, round eyes stared at him with fear and something else, hope. Gideon's first thought was disbelief. Dragons didn't exist. At least, not outside stories and ancient myths. But here it was, trembling and shivering. It let out a soft hiss when he stepped closer, not aggressive, but cautious. For a moment, Gideon considered calling security. He knew the rules: no unauthorized animals, no strange life forms. The alien containment protocols were strict. But the small dragon, if that's what it really was, looked so weak, so tiny, that something in him couldn't leave it there. "Hey, it's okay," he whispered, lowering himself slowly. His voice was calm, gentle, nothing like the loud, strict tones of the station officers. The hatchling tilted its head, studying him. Its nostrils flared, and a tiny wisp of smoke escaped its mouth. Gideon blinked. Smoke? He carefully reached into his jacket and pulled out a packet of nutrient paste, something he usually carried for emergencies. He set it down a few inches away. The dragon sniffed the air, then cautiously nibbled. Its wings twitched, and it made a soft, almost musical squeak. Gideon couldn't help but smile. "This is unreal," he muttered. He crouched beside it, letting the creature feel his presence. It didn't run. It didn't hiss. It simply stayed there, trembling a little but trusting him enough to eat. Minutes passed. Gideon talked softly, telling the dragon about the station, about how the corridors were usually empty at night, about how he cleaned and fixed things while everyone else slept. He didn't know if it understood, but the dragon listened, its eyes flicking between him and the small packet of food. A loud clang from the far end of the bay made the hatchling jump and let out a startled screech. Gideon quickly reached over, placing a protective hand over it. "Shh. I'm here," he said. He looked around. No one was coming. The station was silent except for the hum of the lights. He realized the dragon was hurt. Its left wing had a small tear, and its scales were dull in places where they should have shined. Someone, or something, had been chasing it. The thought made his stomach tighten. Who would hunt a creature like this? Why? He didn't know, but he knew one thing: he couldn't let it go. Not like this. Gideon looked around the bay. Old maintenance crates, broken machinery, and piles of cleaning supplies were scattered everywhere. He had an idea. Carefully, he lifted the hatchling and tucked it into his jacket, keeping it close to his chest. It whimpered softly but didn't struggle. He carried it to a small storage closet he had access to. It was tight, dusty, and smelled faintly of oil and cleaning fluid, but it was safe. He set the dragon down on an old blanket he kept for emergencies. It curled up, its tiny body shaking but slowly relaxing. Gideon watched it, feeling a strange mix of wonder, fear, and responsibility. He had never been a hero. He had never been in a situation like this. But now, holding this fragile creature, he felt something he hadn't in a long time, a purpose bigger than sweeping floors or fixing lights. As he cleaned a small corner and fetched some warm liquid for it to drink, Gideon whispered, "Don't worry. You're safe here. I'll take care of you." The dragon blinked up at him, a soft smoke curl rising from its nostrils, almost like it understood. Gideon smiled despite himself. This little creature had changed everything. His quiet, unnoticed life was about to become something he could never have imagined. Outside, the station remained dark and silent. No one knew what had happened in that little storage closet. No one would expect that a simple human janitor had just saved a dragon. But Gideon didn't care. He just knew one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. Gideon sat on the floor of the small storage closet, watching the little dragon curl up on the blanket. It was quiet now, its eyes half closed, but its wings twitched occasionally. Gideon wasn't sure what to do next. He had never taken care of a living creature like this, let alone a dragon. He fetched another packet of nutrient paste and set it near the dragon. "Here, you need to eat," he said softly. The dragon sniffed the food, then hesitated. Gideon realized it was scared of him, even though he meant no harm. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you," he whispered. Slowly, he extended a hand. The dragon sniffed it and made a soft, almost musical squeak. It nibbled at the paste, then looked up at him, its big eyes filled with something that almost looked like trust. Over the next few hours, Gideon cleaned the closet, patched the blanket, and brought warm water in a small container. He talked to the dragon the whole time, telling it about his life on the station, about how he spent his days cleaning and fixing things, and about how quiet it usually was at night. The dragon tilted its head as if it were listening. Occasionally, it would nuzzle his hand or let out a tiny chirp. Gideon felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never felt this way about anything before. This small, fragile creature depended on him, and somehow, he knew he would do anything to protect it. He named the dragon Ember. The name came to him easily, because of the faint glow in its scales and the little wisp of smoke that always seemed to rise from its nostrils. Ember's wings were still small, and it couldn't fly, but it moved quickly and gracefully on the floor. Gideon found himself watching every twitch of its tail, every flick of its ears. Days passed. Gideon and Ember formed a routine. He would clean and repair, and Ember would follow him around the closet, sometimes hiding under the blanket, sometimes climbing over his shoulders. The dragon was smart, curious, and surprisingly gentle. Gideon realized it understood more than he thought. When he reached for a tool or a packet of food, Ember would watch, anticipating his next move. One evening, while Gideon was fixing a broken light panel in the closet, Ember suddenly hissed and arched its back. Gideon froze. He hadn't seen anyone, but Ember's instincts were sharper than his. A small maintenance drone had drifted too close to the closet, its sensors scanning for problems. Ember let out a soft roar, a warning that made Gideon jump. "You scared it away," he whispered, impressed. He realized then that Ember wasn't just small and fragile. It was smart, brave, and willing to protect him. A tiny dragon, and yet somehow, it was already showing courage. As the days turned into a week, Gideon began to notice small changes. Ember's scales grew brighter, its eyes sharper, and its movements more confident. Gideon started to train it gently, encouraging it to flap its wings. At first, Ember could barely lift itself off the floor. But slowly, with Gideon's patience, it began hopping and gliding short distances. Watching Ember try to fly, Gideon felt something swell in his chest: pride, hope, and awe all at once. He had never felt so connected to another being. The dragon wasn't just a creature he was protecting, it was becoming a companion, a friend. One night, Gideon was sitting on the floor, cleaning a spill, when Ember climbed onto his lap and nuzzled his chest. It was a small gesture, but it made Gideon's eyes water. He whispered, "I've got you. Always." Ember closed its eyes, smoke curling from its nostrils in a tiny wisp, and Gideon realized something important: Ember trusted him completely. But there was still a fear lurking in Gideon's mind. This dragon didn't belong here. Someone, or something, was probably looking for it. He thought about the stories he had heard long ago, of dragons being powerful and dangerous. Was Ember being hunted? Why? And what would happen if they found it? Despite the fear, Gideon refused to leave Ember alone. Every night, he stayed with the dragon, keeping watch, feeding it, talking to it. He taught it to hide when the station drones came too close, to crawl under crates, and to flap its wings quietly so no one would hear. Ember learned quickly, responding to gestures and soft commands. By the end of the week, a bond had formed that neither of them could ignore. Ember would follow Gideon everywhere in the closet, curling up beside him at night, watching him with alert, intelligent eyes during the day. Gideon, in turn, felt a sense of responsibility he had never known before. He would protect Ember with his life, and he knew the dragon would do the same for him. One quiet night, as Gideon sat on the floor with Ember resting against his shoulder, he whispered, "We're in this together. No matter what comes." Ember lifted its head, letting out a soft chirp, almost like it understood. Gideon smiled. Somehow, he felt that this tiny dragon had already changed his life. His simple, unnoticed days were gone. Now, with Ember at his side, he felt like the start of something much bigger, something that could change not just his life, but the fate of the station, maybe even the galaxy. And deep down, Gideon knew this was only the beginning. Gideon woke before the station alarms even rang. A low hum vibrated through the corridors, different from the usual machinery sounds. Ember stirred on the blanket, ears twitching, and let out a soft hiss. Gideon's heart skipped a beat. Something was wrong. He stepped carefully out of the storage closet, holding Ember close. The small dragon's wings were folded tightly, but it didn't struggle. Gideon peered down the hallway. Red lights flashed across the walls, and an announcement blared through the station speakers, "Unidentified fleet approaching. All personnel, take shelter." Gideon had never seen a fleet before. Outside the station's viewing ports, enormous ships glinted in the darkness of space. Their surfaces were sleek, alien, and menacing. He felt a cold chill run down his spine. Whoever was out there, they were looking for something, or someone. Ember shifted in his arms, smoke curling from its nostrils. Gideon realized the dragon could sense the threat before anyone else. He whispered, "Stay quiet, Ember. We'll get through this." The station's crew scrambled. Officers barked orders, humans and aliens alike rushing through corridors. Gideon stayed in the shadows, moving carefully, avoiding attention. He didn't have weapons. He only had knowledge of the station's hidden corners, its maintenance shafts, and small service elevators. That knowledge might be the only thing between them and capture. A security drone hovered near the storage closet entrance. Its red eye scanned the room, searching for unauthorized movement. Gideon froze, pressing Ember against his chest. The dragon hissed softly, tiny smoke rings rising from its nostrils. Gideon took a deep breath and slowly lowered himself to the floor, sliding under a maintenance panel. The drone passed, oblivious. Gideon realized that Ember wasn't just a fragile creature. The small dragon had instincts, senses, and intelligence far beyond normal animals. It had been hunted for a reason. He had to keep it safe, no matter what. He moved through the station's narrow maintenance tunnels, choosing paths only he knew. Ember clung to him, its tiny claws digging lightly into his jacket. Gideon whispered encouragements, guiding it past corridors filled with panicked crew members and automated security bots. From one shadowed corner, he saw an alien officer, tall and armored, pointing toward the closet. "The creature is here. Secure it immediately." Gideon's chest tightened. That confirmed it. Ember was valuable, maybe dangerous, and these aliens were relentless. They weren't just passing by, they were hunting. He could see it in the precision of their movements, the coordination of their fleet outside. If Ember fell into their hands, who knew what would happen? He ducked into a maintenance elevator shaft, sliding the panel closed behind him. Ember's small body trembled, and Gideon hugged it tighter. "It's okay. I've got you." He felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. Protecting this dragon wasn't just about kindness anymore, it was about survival. Hours passed. Gideon and Ember crawled through the station, avoiding patrols and keeping to shadows. The station was in chaos. Alarms blared, people screamed, and everywhere, there were signs of fear. But Gideon stayed calm. He had to. Ember needed him, and he could not fail. At one point, they came to a large observation deck overlooking the docking bay. Gideon peeked through the thick glass. Alien ships hovered close, scanning the station with beams of light. In one of the ships, he saw a figure, enormous and commanding. Its eyes were fixed on the station. Gideon felt a shiver of fear, but also a spark of determination. He realized something important. Ember was not ordinary. If these aliens wanted it so badly, it must have power they feared. And maybe, just maybe, that power could help humans if they were brave enough to protect it. Gideon pressed on, using every hidden passage, every vent, and every maintenance ladder he knew. He whispered to Ember constantly, keeping it calm, teaching it to stay quiet, to trust him. The small dragon began to respond, following gestures, listening to tone, hissing softly when danger was near. At one point, a patrol drone turned a corner. Gideon froze, heart pounding. Ember flared its tiny wings and let out a soft roar, not loud enough to alert everyone, but enough to make the drone hesitate. It hesitated, then drifted away, confused. Gideon realized the dragon was learning to protect itself, and him. By the time they reached a narrow service corridor that led to a hidden storage bay, Gideon was exhausted, but he felt pride too. Ember had survived the first wave of danger. He had survived. And they were together. He placed Ember on the blanket in the hidden bay, letting the little dragon catch its breath. "You're incredible," Gideon said softly. "We'll figure this out, together." Ember blinked slowly, smoke curling from its nostrils like a quiet answer. Gideon knew that this was only the beginning. The aliens would not give up. They would hunt Ember relentlessly, and the station might not hold. But he had a plan forming in his mind. He had to find a way to get Ember off the station, to keep it safe, to fight back in whatever way he could. For the first time in his life, Gideon felt something he had never known. Purpose. Courage. Hope. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was a protector. And if anyone, or anything, wanted to stop him, they would have to face the quiet strength of a human willing to risk everything for something worth saving. Gideon crouched in the shadows, holding Ember close. The station trembled as the alien fleet outside fired scanning beams that cut through the walls like knives. Sparks flew from panels and alarms blared, drowning out all other sounds. Gideon's heart pounded. He knew there was no time to waste. He peeked around a corner. The corridors were crawling with alien soldiers and security drones, searching for Ember. Most humans had taken shelter, leaving the halls empty and dangerous. Gideon knew the station like the back of his hand. Every vent, maintenance shaft, and secret tunnel was familiar. It would have to be enough to save them. "Stay close," he whispered to Ember. The dragon trembled slightly but didn't struggle. Its wings twitched, ready to spring into action if needed. Gideon felt a surge of determination. He had faced dangerous situations before, broken machinery, fires, even angry crew members, but nothing like this. Now, his life and Ember's depended on his every move. They crawled through a narrow service tunnel, Gideon moving silently while Ember clung to him. The hum of alien scanners grew louder. He paused when a patrol drone turned the corner, holding his breath as it scanned the vent. Ember let out a tiny hiss, but Gideon kept it quiet, pressing the dragon against his chest. The drone drifted past, oblivious. "Almost there," he muttered. He knew a small cargo lift at the far end of the tunnels that could lead them to a hidden storage bay with an escape shuttle. The plan was risky. The lift had old controls, and the shuttle hadn't been fully powered in months. But it was the only chance they had. As they approached the lift, a shadow fell over them. An alien officer, taller and armored, stepped into the corridor. Gideon froze. Ember hissed, smoke curling from its nostrils, tiny flames flickering at the corners. The officer's eyes narrowed. "Stop! Don't move," it barked in a harsh, metallic voice. Gideon weighed his options. Fight was impossible. Running blindly would be suicide. He took a deep breath, then remembered a small trick he had used as a janitor: old maintenance cables, loose panels, and hidden corners. He ducked behind a service panel, and Ember followed. The officer passed slowly, scanning the walls. Gideon's heart raced, but they slipped past unnoticed. Finally, they reached the cargo lift. Gideon pushed the controls and waited as it creaked and groaned. Ember perched on his shoulder, wings twitching nervously. Sparks flew, and the lift jolted. Gideon gritted his teeth. Come on, come on." The lift moved upward, slowly but steadily, carrying them closer to the storage bay where the shuttle waited. Halfway there, a group of alien soldiers appeared at the end of the tunnel. Gideon cursed under his breath. There was no turning back. He glanced at Ember. The little dragon flared its wings and let out a powerful hiss, the sound echoing in the tunnel. Sparks of energy shot from its mouth, hitting a nearby panel. The aliens froze, startled. The blast shorted some equipment, forcing the soldiers to retreat momentarily. Gideon's eyes widened. Ember had power. Real power. But it was still small and vulnerable. They had to move fast. He grabbed the dragon and ran as the lift creaked and jolted, finally reaching the storage bay. The shuttle was old, dusty, and barely functional. Gideon had only one chance. He quickly ran through the controls, igniting the engines with sparks flying. Ember watched nervously, smoke curling from its nostrils. The alien fleet outside had noticed them. Red beams scanned the bay, locking on the shuttle. Gideon pressed the throttle, and the shuttle lurched forward, shaking violently. Ember clung to him, tiny claws digging into his jacket. The engines roared, and the shuttle shot out of the storage bay, narrowly missing a wall. Sparks rained down as the lift doors melted from the heat. The alien fleet opened fire, beams of energy slicing through the darkness of space. Gideon weaved the shuttle through debris and cargo pods, barely dodging each attack. Ember's wings flapped, and with a small burst of energy, it sent a shockwave that pushed one pursuing ship off course. Gideon's jaw dropped. Ember wasn't just helping, they were fighting back together. "Hold on!" Gideon shouted. He twisted the controls, narrowly avoiding another laser blast. Ember chirped, smoke curling from its nostrils, wings spread as if ready to protect them both. The bond between them was stronger than ever. The dragon trusted him completely, and he trusted it. Finally, they cleared the station's outer defenses. The alien fleet was still in pursuit, but Gideon found a hidden jump gate, long and used, that could lead them to human-controlled space. He punched in the coordinates, hands shaking. Ember leaned against him, wings flaring nervously as the engines powered up. With a blinding flash, the shuttle jumped through the gate. The alien fleet faltered, momentarily losing them in the vast darkness of space. Gideon slumped back in his seat, breathing heavily. Ember curled against his chest, soft smoke rising from its nostrils. For the first time since the hunt began, they were safe. For now. But Gideon knew the danger was far from over. Ember was special, powerful, and dangerous to the wrong people. The galaxy would not leave them alone. Gideon looked down at the little dragon and smiled, exhausted but proud. "We did it, together." Ember blinked up at him, wings twitching, as if agreeing. Gideon knew one thing clearly: the impossible escape had worked, but the real challenges were just beginning. They would face enemies far stronger than those at the station. And together, they would have to be clever, brave, and ready for anything. One human and one dragon. Small, unnoticed, and underestimated. But Gideon knew, deep down, that they were about to change everything. The shuttle drifted in quiet space, engines humming softly. Gideon leaned back in his seat, exhausted. Ember curled against his chest, smoke rising gently from its nostrils. For the first time in days, the world felt still. But Gideon knew better. The galaxy would not leave them alone, not with a dragon like Ember alive. He stared at the small creature in his arms, its scales glinting faintly in the soft cabin light. Ember had grown stronger during their escape, its wings flaring with power and confidence. Gideon realized something profound: this dragon wasn't just a helpless hatchling. It was extraordinary, and somehow, it had chosen him. Suddenly, the shuttle's comm system crackled. "Human vessel detected," a voice warned. Gideon's stomach sank. An alien cruiser appeared on the scanner, sleek and menacing, cutting through the darkness like a predator. They had tracked him through the jump gate. The aliens were relentless. Gideon's first instinct was fear, but he pushed it aside. He had survived worse. He had Ember. Together, they had already escaped once. "Stay calm," he whispered. Ember lifted its head and looked at him, eyes bright and intelligent, as if understanding every word. The alien ship's weapons charged, glowing red. Gideon's mind raced. He could not outrun them, they were faster. He had to outthink them. Slowly, he adjusted the shuttle's trajectory toward a nearby asteroid field, hoping to use it as cover. Ember chirped softly, flapping its tiny wings, and suddenly a spark of energy burst from its mouth, hitting the shuttle's exterior. Sparks flew, and a small shockwave sent the approaching alien sensors momentarily haywire. Gideon blinked. Ember's power could disrupt advanced alien technology. He realized, for the first time, that the little dragon was more than a companion. It was a weapon, a protector, and a key to human survival. Using Ember's energy, Gideon guided the shuttle through the asteroid field. He twisted and turned, narrowly avoiding massive rocks. The alien ship followed, but each time it approached, Ember's bursts of power forced it back. It was risky. One mistake could destroy them both. Yet, Gideon felt a surge of pride. He and Ember were a team. Together, they were unstoppable. After hours of tense navigation, they emerged on the edge of human-controlled space. Gideon's comm panel crackled to life. "Identify yourself," a human fleet commander demanded. Gideon quickly explained the situation. Within minutes, human ships arrived, surrounding the shuttle. The commander's eyes widened as they scanned Ember. "By the Council, that's a dragon. We thought they were extinct." Gideon felt a rush of awe. Ember wasn't just rare, it was the last of a legendary species, creatures of immense power, capable of turning the tide in battles across the galaxy. News spread quickly through the human fleet. Reports of a human protecting a dragon, a simple janitor no one had noticed before, became the spark of hope humans desperately needed. Gideon had not sought glory, but now, his courage had inspired everyone. Ember chirped, and Gideon noticed its wings glowing faintly. The dragon seemed to understand the attention, nuzzling him softly. He realized then that this little creature had chosen him not just as a protector but as a partner in what was coming. The galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet commander approached Gideon. "You risked everything to protect that hatchling," he said, voice filled with respect. "Your courage, it's extraordinary. You've changed everything for humanity today." Gideon shook his head, feeling humbled. He had only done what he knew was right. But deep down, he felt the truth: even the smallest human could make a difference. Suddenly, sensors on the fleet detected movement, a shadow in space. The alien fleet had not given up. But now, humans had the advantage. Ember's power could disrupt their systems, human pilots were ready, and Gideon's knowledge of strategy and quick thinking became a symbol of hope. One small human and one tiny dragon had already shifted the balance. Gideon looked at Ember. The little dragon chirped softly, smoke curling gently from its nostrils. It was more than a companion. It was a sign that humans could rise against impossible odds, that courage, ingenuity, and heart could change the galaxy itself. For the first time, Gideon felt the weight of what he had done. He had been a janitor, unnoticed and overlooked. But now, he had saved a dragon, inspired a fleet, and struck fear into the galaxy's most powerful enemies. All because he chose to act when it mattered most. Ember flapped its wings, small sparks of energy trailing behind. Gideon smiled. Together, they had survived, and together, they could face anything. The galaxy might be vast, full of danger and uncertainty, but they were ready. A human and a dragon, seemingly small, underestimated, and fragile, were now symbols of hope, courage, and the extraordinary power of humans when they refused to back down. Gideon leaned back in his seat, holding Ember close. "We did it, little one," he whispered. "And we're just getting started." Ember's eyes blinked slowly, smoke curling from its nostrils. It was a quiet agreement, a promise that, no matter what came, they would face it together. Outside the shuttle, the stars stretched endlessly. But inside, one human and one dragon knew the truth: they were no longer just surviving. They were ready to change the galaxy. And somewhere far away, the alien fleet realized that a single act of courage, a human janitor protecting a lost dragon, had already shattered their plans. The galaxy would never forget it.